Welcome back to Free Media. I'm Amber Duke.
And I'm Robby Soave.
Podcast giant Joe Rogan condemned Canada's Justin Trudeau in his efforts to crack down on free expression. Let's watch.
Every government wants to eventually completely and totally control its population because it's way easier for them to make money. And that's what they like to do.
Yeah.
They like to make money. They like to be in bed with the lobbyists and the military-industrial complex and the pharmaceutical-industrial complex, and they like to fucking impose their will on people. And if you can't express yourself and say, hey, this is fucked up, this is crazy, why am I doing this? Like, these studies show that you're not correct. Like, if you can't say all those things, which right now you can't do in Canada, it's not the same. Like, their ability to express themselves on the internet has been severely limited. It's real weird, man. It's real weird, and it's happening right. You could walk there. If you wanted to, you could walk there. And it's fucked. It's like it's on the same patch of land as us, and it's fucked. It just shows you what can happen here if you don't have the right laws. Because people like that fuckhead, Justin, they pretend.
You guys are on first name basis.
Yeah, that cocksucker. They pretend that they're, and I don't talk this way about anybody.
No, I'm really surprised.
I genuinely despise people like that. And I think it's good to say it publicly because people need to understand like what these people are doing. These people are leading you on the road to legitimate communism. Like he's leading that country on a road to legitimate communism. It's very dangerous.
Joe Rogan feels the way about Justin Trudeau that I feel the way about, I think Mehdi Hasan is the person
Anthony Fauci.
Anthony Fauci, yeah, well, that goes without saying. We were talking about Mehdi Hasan a lot today on Rising for some reason. I was just reminded of how much I dislike that guy.
Dunked on by J.D. Vance the other day, which is excellent.
Deservedly. Anyway, we've talked about free speech a lot in our most recent couple episodes, but it's a subject near and dear to our hearts.
Important issue.
Yes, Canada has turned its back on free expression, although maybe not to the same extent as Germany, now that I'm learning way more about what goes on in that country with the police actually knocking on your door to confiscate your cell phone and laptop for making jokes they don't approve of. But Canada could be headed that way, and again, it just makes me happy that we live in a much more like rah-rah America, pro-pain. I've never been like a freedom fries kind of guy, but I'm feeling the, I relate to Zuckerberg a little bit. Coming around to like, man, America is the only place where it lets us build things and do whatever we want, and it's great.
You're gonna start the Libertarian Nationalist Party.
The Libertarian Nationalist
Party. It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be beautiful.
Well,
then it's gonna have to split into two sub-parts because it's libertarian. So
that's
we
right.
gotta subdivide.
Right.
And
you'll never win any elections. But
well, of course not.
we wouldn't dream of doing that.
No.
But yeah, Canada, this is not surprising. I mean, they've already done this to an extent. I mean, everyone remembers the Freedom Convoy, the truckers who were protesting the vaccine mandates and the mask mandates under Justin Trudeau. And he not only cracked down on them very severely, but even stole money from GoFundMes or encouraged those companies to shut down the fundraisers that people had made for them so that they could continue protesting instead of having to work under the vaccine mandates. All millions of dollars just completely wiped out from these individuals. So it's one of those things that authoritarianism is a creeping syndrome. And they, I think, use that as a bit of a test case. We're probably a little surprised by how forcefully and vociferously
the resistance to it was,
especially from Americans. And I just got to throw in here that this recent USA-Canada hockey game with the Canadians booing the American national anthem, and then we just beat the crap out of them. I mean, we had like 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of the game, and then we beat them 3-1, and it was just so satisfying. Stay in your lane, Canada.
I don't follow hockey very much. I'm from Detroit, so the Red Wings were always doing pretty well when I was a kid. I think they won the national whatever thing.
I only watched.
You only watched
USA.
for the patriotic fervor.
Exactly. I'm an Olympics nut. I love the Olympics. Yeah.
I've had a weird amount of exposure to sports lately. Well, it was the Super Bowl, and I had a mutual friend of ours, British friend, staying with me for a little bit, and so there was always some rugby on. So I learned more about how rugby works. Strange sport. I don't think do they play that in Canada? I have no idea.
Who knows?
The other thing I was going to say on this subject is I read a kind of related subject, COVID authoritarianism. There was an interesting thing by Derek Thompson at The Atlantic, one of the mainstream reporters I quite like, actually, on how he does think that COVID, the response to COVID, the COVID restrictions, specifically has pushed young people toward the right. And that, the amount of the school closures, the closing down of physical activities, the social alienation, the everything we did to young people is really taking a toll on their faith in elite institutions and experts and governments that implemented these things that really, wrecked their lives for multiple years, depending on where you lived and what your circumstances were, and that we've only Democrats are only beginning to reckon with the political consequences of having asked them to ask the people who were least at risk of negative COVID health outcomes to sacrifice so much for so long.
That makes perfect sense to me. You had students who had to do remote school for 2 to 3 years.
Right. 2 to 3 years?
Yeah.
Years.
Had to get, if you were in college, perfectly healthy, doesn't matter. You have to get a vaccine and then 2 boosters after that.
And they were still wearing masks longer than anybody else.
Yeah.
For outdoor activity.
And if you even got sick, not even COVID, but if you just got sick, you had to stay in your dorm room and quarantine for 14 days just in case it was COVID. It was really draconian.
It was one step short of they're going to shoot you on site for coughing.
Yeah, exactly. It was. There was a policy at Georgetown. And this was hilarious. I reported on this at the time. I think this was in 2021. They had a policy that if you were studying in the library, you were not allowed to pull your mask down just to take a sip of water. And there were instances of students actually getting screamed at because they dared go like this to take a sip of water. Meanwhile, the architect of the Georgetown COVID policy was spotted at the Kennedy Center without a mask.
I'm shocked. How surprising.
I know.
Wow, those elites not following their own rules. Imagine that. That does it for us for this week on Free Media. Thank you so much for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe, and follow us. Our YouTube channel is Reason Free Media. See you next week.